Welcome back, everybody, to Recruitment Uncensored. I should not have put a sweet in my mouth before we went live then, because I'm struggling to speak now. But yeah, welcome back. I am super, super, super excited for today's show for two reasons. One, I've got an amazing guest, Leisha Holmes. Host, I'm going to read off all your accolades now. So, host of the Recruiters podcast,
Recruiters,
co-founder of her.
the host of the Recruiters Recruitment podcast.
Oh, the Recruiters Recruitment podcast. I already got that wrong. Co-founder of Women in Recruitment Leadership.
Yep.
And founder of Key Recruitment. And I pronounced it right this time, didn't I?
Yeah, everybody says key, but it's key. It means who. It's a pun on the key to recruitment, and it stands for quality, urgency, and integrity, which are the three core values that I run the business on in every single process.
Oh, I didn't know it stood for those things. Love that.
Yeah. If you look on the website, key.co.uk, that's actually the landing page. It actually explains that's what it stands for.
Because a lot of people look at that the other day because you've just had it done, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Did you like it?
Yeah, I loved it. It's good. Well, so the reason I've got a sweet in my mouth, as a disclaimer, I have got a little bit of a cough still. So apologies to the viewers today. I will try and keep the coughing to a minimum. But the second reason why I'm excited for today is because of what we're going to be talking about. And I know Leisha is going to bring a lot of honesty with this, a lot of straight talk. But we're going to be talking about why women win in recruitment. So what I'd encourage any of you to do when you're watching today, which I know I always do, if we're talking about something you want to ask about or you want to comment on it, chuck it in, and if we've got time, I'll bring up as many as I can as possible. So yeah, get involved with us today as we're talking about this subject. But I'm going to dive in because we have got a lot to talk about, and 30 minutes is going to go very quickly. And we know we can both talk because we've already recorded a couple of things together. So let's get stuck in. So the first thing I wanted to cover off is, in your opinion, like, what do you see is the competitive edge that women have in our industry?
Okay. I found that a really interesting question when I was thinking about it, because I almost think that to answer it properly, we have to take a step back and understand what makes us different. And I actually think a very controversial answer is that I don't necessarily think per se that women have a competitive advantage. It's the woman in that scenario that has the competitive advantage. And the women that I see winning in recruitment or in any career that they choose to have are those that have done the work on themselves to remove a lot of the societal restraints that we're generations behind leaving, the marginalisation that women often have in society, including recruitment, which I know we're going to come on to, and removing the self-limiting self-beliefs that women have, which because of the society and because of media and social media, that the restraints that are put upon us, they have done the work to ensure that they feel empowered, that they have the competitive edge, that whether they're working alongside other women or other men, they use to their advantage. And that will include, for me, understanding what their skills are, what their value is, what their opinion means to people, regardless of the fact that they're a woman. But the fact that they are a woman means that, and it's partly why I co-founded the Women in Recruitment Leadership, because for me, I felt that there was no way to promote and cascade the lessons that myself and my co-founders have learned through doing the work that I've just described. So I think very often when we share, we share opinions like this, it's important to kind of go back a step and say, it's all well and good saying, well, to have a competitive edge in recruitment as a woman, you need to do this and you need to do this. It's actually right. Take stock and say, where am I on my own journey as a person, but also as a recruiter? And then you add those layers on. So I think it's not unique specifically to women. I think that applies to anybody. But I think the disadvantage that women have is that we almost have our own self-limiting beliefs because of where we are in our journey as an evolution.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, if you're coming from a place where you don't believe, let's use an example, you don't believe you can be a leader in the business. If you are thinking that and believing it, then that's going to become your reality.
Yep.
So I love that point, because you've got to go back to, well, what's going on in here? Like, do I, and actually, funny enough, I've been having that journey myself the last year, doing a lot of inner work on liking myself more, basically, because everything else is affected by that. Everything, isn't it?
Totally. And I think, I started my recruitment journey, literally in the last century, in the 1990s. And if I, use these two women as an example, they were, there were strides ahead of anyone else in the business, whether they were a man or a woman. They were two incredible women. One was the operations director, one was the sales director. They were formidable. They worked damn hard. Interesting. One was a mum, one wasn't a mum. She was a dog mum.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at some of the behaviours now retrospectively in the climate that we're now in, with the narrative that we now have, understanding the marginalisation that we have as women, I realised that they were replicating the behaviours of the men that were successful around them and mimicking those behaviours, which I think is really common. Again, in, we look at, and I know we talked about this before we went live, the whole kind of boss bitch, girl boss, I think we need to stop using language like that about ourselves to proclaim that we're competitive and that we're successful. And actually, that's why I want us to focus on our actual skills and the actual value that we bring to recruitment, whether that's we're just in the early stages of our career, whether that's as founders, whether that's as leaders, looking at succession planning. It should be this narrative of, it's not gender specific, those behaviours. That could be anybody. But I learned a lot being managed by those women, because the way that I saw them behave, they emasculated themselves so horrifically that they were not supportive when I went to them as somebody that I should be able to trust. And they diminished me as a woman. So that's where I think, I do think we've moved on a long way. I'd like to think we've moved on since then. That was 26 years ago. It's a long time ago. But I think that if you, as a woman in recruitment, and especially as a leader and as a founder in recruitment, you want to create an environment where anybody in that business can feel they can be successul and has a competitive advantage. And that's why my answer to that was, I think it starts with, you have to take the step back and say, what language am I using about myself? For me, I am a leader, I am a recruiter, I am a woman, and I run a business that's female leaders in recruitment, because I want to express that we all have a responsibility to everybody to bring out the best in each other and not marginalize people based on purely where they sit from a gender perspective. So I think it's about, I love having conversations like this, because it's normalizing the fact that we are all responsible for taking ourselves on this journey, wherever we're at.
Yeah. And, I think the things you were saying there, I remember, it's not like anyone told me you've got to try and be like the men in the office to get anywhere, but I just sort of believed that's what I had to do. And don't get me wrong, parts of my personality, it's not that I was being a completely fake person. Like, I am quite fiery, I'm quite direct and all these things, but I think sometimes I wasn't, like you mentioned, I didn't really understand who I was. Like, what are my unique qualities? What are my strengths? And I think sometimes it's checking in with how we speak about ourselves and to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because again, if that's if we're saying that around other people, well, they're going to believe that. They're going to believe that as well, and then that could affect how, I don't know, our career development or whatever it is.
Yeah, totally.
Just I can't see who I'm going to break. This is a big one, so I don't know if it's going to take up loads of the screen. We're going to have to sit like this. I don't know why it's not come up with the user. Women will look at job descriptions. If they don't meet at least 80% of the requirements, they will talk themselves out of applying for it. Yeah. Whereas men just shoot their shot. It's 100% limiting self-beliefs that stop women from applying to jobs. Yeah. So there's something that Jo Phillips told me, or she said at one of her talks, that really sticks with me. And now I see it. I can't unsee it. I'm going to take this off. That's just so we can see each other again.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it. That men are judged on their potential, whereas women are judged on their results. And I think that ties into that comment there. In fact, that could be Jo Phillips for all I know. I don't know. It's commented because it's a LinkedIn user. I think it's come from LinkedIn. I think that ties into the job description thing, doesn't it? Is that we'll look at it and think, well, in fact, my sister was doing this recently. She works in social, she's a social worker. This job is she's totally capable of doing it. She's like, I don't know if I should apply because I don't know, I haven't got proven results. Yeah, but you've got so many transferable experiences.
Yeah.
Whereas like her husband will go for jobs that, you know, he's a sales director and he's like, I'll give it a go, and he's got the job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We've reinforced through society, through the patriarchy, through the horrific gender pay gap that we have, and through, I know we're going to come on to the challenges shortly. I'm not giving away any secrets there. We have got a lot to do when it comes to the way we speak to ourselves about ourselves. And it all comes down, whoever that LinkedIn user is, I suspect it's Joe Phillips or Joe Major, maybe. It's about our limiting self-beliefs. And then from that point, then we can start the education piece. And that's, for me, the key thing that I wanted to make and drive home, that's the starting point.
Yeah. And it gets missed all the time, doesn't it? Well, let's jump onto the challenges. So what are the biggest challenges you see women face? And let's talk as well about like how people can overcome them. So I'm sure there's people watching that are sort of like probably wanting some help with this as well.
I mean, you know, without sort of reiterating a point we've already made, I think it is important that for me, the first biggest challenge is our limiting self-beliefs. And I think that that's where using language to talk about how you do your job, how you promote yourself on your personal brand on LinkedIn, what you share on your CV when you're applying for something, whether it's your covering letter, whether it's talking about your achievements. Why do you think you should talk to yourself in a limiting way? Why do you think you should not talk yourself up into that job? And let's reverse that 80% and make it the other way around. You know, we should be thinking about ourselves of what do we have in terms of potential. So for me, it's there are so many coaches out there. There are so many podcasts out there that even if you don't have the funds to go and find yourself somebody to support you on that journey, accept that that's probably the position that you're starting with, and use that time to think, right, what can I do to change the language? And if I often say this, that a very simple technique is, if your best friend was sat with you, you just talked about your sister who's social worker, but if your best friend is sat there talking to you about a job they want to go for, and they're talking in a negative way about themselves and saying, well, I don't know, I don't really have all the skills to go for this job, but, you know, I'm not sure what to do. What would you say is that person's best friend to go, right, let's look at it. Let's take everything back here. Let's look at the essentials on the job description. Let's look at the, you know, nice to haves. And then let's look at your CV and your experience. And let's look at, you know, very objectively and decide whether that's the right thing to do. And you would give this advice to your friend. You would take the emotion out of it, and you would ensure that they're using positive language about themselves, right? We're all agreed on that. Why are you not doing that to yourself? Why are you doing that to a third party, but not to yourself? And I think that's something that anybody that's listening or watching this now, you can do that now today. That doesn't take a lot of work to do that. Just literally that one simple reframe. What would you say to your best friend? You would say, why don't you go and do this, this, and this? These are
be supportive.
Yeah. So that's the first thing. I think that's the first biggest challenge, which we've got a hell of a long way to go, treacle up a hill, but we'll get there. If we just all do that one thing today, just change the way and flip the way you talk to yourself. I think the second thing is, you know, we've you know, from a gender pay gap perspective, we are decades behind where we need to be. And I think that from my perspective, my responsibility as a supplier to the recruitment industry and as a leader myself is to ensure that we are diminishing and minimizing the risk of somebody being assessed because of the gender that they're at. I think that the one thing I will say about recruitment, and in fact, my business partner, Laura Dutton, brought this up on, we're doing the training with Joe Major at the moment, is that because recruitment is a meritocracy, in theory, there should be no gender pay gap. But the third point I'm going to make is that this is why there is, because we are not, as an industry, leading the way and innovating with maternity pay. When we do surveys on this, when we ask clients about this, there are still such a small number of companies that are actually enhancing maternity packages. And the reality is that we are the ones that go off to have the child. We are the ones that physically have the time away. Even if we then bounce back out. After Lilia was born, I think I was back at work in about 8 weeks. because I wanted to. I enjoyed my job, and basically I needed to. We were in a recession at the time. So I think until we address the actual benefits and we look as an industry and we not navel gaze, but we really analyse where are the best incentives, where are the best maternity and paternity packages, so that we bring women back into the workforce quicker, so that there isn't that gap on their experience. And also, let's talk about childcare. What are we doing as an industry to make ourselves more flexible? Which is why the debate rages on about hybrid versus remote versus, mandating back in the office. If as a recruitment business, you are not giving that option, obviously to all, so it's not a discriminatory thing, you are going to diminish those working parents, particularly working mums, coming back to work. And that's where we then see the gender pay gap in recruitment, because the massive chunk missing. I'm very pleased to see that Lily is on. There you go. My mini me's on.
And she's loving it.
Yeah, good.
So's Jason.
Good.
Jason Jones, loving this guy, smashing it. Good. And I think this is why as well we see less. This is why it annoys me sometimes when people are like, yeah, well, we haven't got as many female leaders because they don't apply for the jobs. But if they are planning on having like I remember when I first started in recruitment, and even then thinking, well, what the hell would I do if I ever decided to have a kid? Because I genuinely believed it would mess up my career. And I remember it's awful, like being in my early 20s, and a lot of my friends had kids it's young to me, had kids quite young, and being like, what are you doing? What are you do about work? Like, you've worked so hard in your career, you're going to ruin it. And that is mental that I even used to think that, but
it's still the reality.
It's still going on. That's what I mean, and it shouldn't have to be like that. Like, you shouldn't have to choose between, do I have to put my career on hold forever or have a child?
No, I mean, we have to park that for a minute, because the whole can women have it all is a whole different conversation. But just while we're on this about the stats, I did actually do some stats research for you, which this is from UK Recruitment Index. Now, these stats are only up to 2023, and I suspect with the unfortunate redundancies that we've seen in the last 12 months, this might be even lower, but this was literally the most up-to-date ChatGPT-4 gave me today.
Okay.
Of the recruitment industry, 47% of the recruitment industry are females. Out of that, and that's up from the year before, from 41%. Out of the 47%, 33% of recruitment firms have women in senior leadership roles, and it's believed that less than 5% have them as founders, which is literally mind-blowing. I hope
less than 5%.
Yeah,
and I think it's less than. I think it's only 1% of female founders get funding or investment.
Yeah,
isn't it?
Yeah. Which
really pisses me off, to be honest with you.
That goes right back to, and I'm sorry we keep harping on about this, but that goes back to the limiting self-beliefs, because why do you feel that you can't go and do that? And I think, we have to change the whole conversation about what we think we can achieve. I did this, Lily is on, I'm so pleased Lily is on there, because she's part of the reason that I have Key. Obviously she wasn't born, but my eldest daughter was born, and I was working for a recruitment firm, and there was no flexibility around me returning to do what, back in 2004 was a hybrid role. But I felt I could accomplish that. I'd been managing the office very successfully. My team were happy for me to come back hybrid. They were like, yeah, great. But my MD said, you'll have to come back and be demoted to a consultant, or you can have the part-time, but we can't keep you as a leader. And it's like, what? So I set up Key Recruitment so I could basically have the balance of both. And I often think that word gets used incorrectly, because every person watching this, wherever you are in your life, whatever your caring responsibilities are, whether it's children or not, we all have to harmonise how we live our lives. And I think that if more people were having these conversations and how we can overcome them together, it's about understanding, and it's about supporting one another, and it's about leaders and founders like myself not being afraid to say, it's bloody hard. It's really hard work. And then, being realistic and saying, sometimes you'll call me and I might be on a school run. Not now, mine are older, but, why would we be ashamed about that? You'd never ask a dad specifically, how's it going to be going back to work, now that you've had a baby? But we always think that to ourselves and have these conversations between women, and we need to stop doing that, because actually create an equitable society where parents all share responsibility. I'm a solo parent, but you know, I was lucky enough to bring up my daughters with the father till they were like a bit older. Why are we singularly putting it all onto the women? Why does it always come down to I'm interested to see what Amelia said. I can see Amelia said something about childcare.
I know, I was just going to say, if I get time, I'll come back to it. If not, we'll jump onto it after. And before I come to the third question, I just wanted to bring up actually, so basically this, what you've just said works. And I know a lot of people would be like, yeah, but it won't work. People being hybrid. My old agency that I worked for, right, for 6.5, 7 years, I was the only woman in the company without, on the consultant team without a child. So most of the consultants actually were women, and we all worked from home, completely remote, and they all had children, and they were massive billers, very, very successful. I learned so much from those women and the men in the company, but they all worked remotely. They were all allowed the flexibility. They were all allowed to, as long as they did their job, the managers were like, yeah, cool. If you need to do the school run, if you need to do a doctor's appointment, if the kid's sick, whatever. And they were massively successful, like hugely successful, and is still in the business.
Funnily enough, if you create an environment that allows empowerment and allows people to be treated like adults, guess what? They'll behave like adults. It's very rare you'll find an example where people will take the piss. It's very, very rare. And it shouldn't matter. And I am going to state a factor, which I think Amelia kind of alludes to. I can only skim read. Sorry, I can't do two things at once anymore.
I know, yeah.
You will never find a more motivated biller than a parent. They cost a fortune. Sorry, Lils, you do. Not so much now because she pays for her own stuff, but
I haven't done it.
Yeah, having a family.
Although I did shock you a bit in the green room, didn't I?
I know. We'll talk about that another time. So I think that, you know, we have to, again, you know, as an industry, it's a whole different topic, isn't it? Talking about hybrid culture and how that actually operates. But, you know, I'm a walking example of the fact that I know I'm one of the top billers in Rec to Rec, and I've always said I'm a mum first and foremost. I'm proud of that. And I've placed some of the best recruiters across the 26 years that I've been in recruitment. And 25% of my placements are always working mums, you know, that I just seem to attract those people. And that's great. Because you just get on with it. That's your target. Go and do it, you know. So I'm really glad you brought that point up.
Yeah, and I can see some more comments coming in. The bigger ones we will come back to, but same thing happened to Nicola. You mentioned about the demotion to go part-time. So bad, but yeah, so we will come back and elaborate on these after the show, especially the meatier ones, but I just want to make sure we have time for this last one. What are some practical strategies that women can use to sort of build? We talked about confidence, what we think about ourselves, and that sort of contributes to our credibility then, doesn't it, in career growth? What are some things people can do?
Okay. So I think the first thing is to ensure that you are surrounded by the right people and that you are not necessarily in an echo chamber, but where you feel inspired, where you feel supported, where you feel psychologically safe. Because if you can tick yes to all of those three things, then you know that you as a person will be supported as you go on this journey of self-discovery. And I'm really sorry to sound happy-clappy, but self-love. Because I think that's where this all starts. When you have to build confidence and you want advice on how to build confidence, that's actually what it comes down to. If you can actually look yourself in the eye and look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm proud of myself, I've achieved this, then you will have an abundance of confidence in every action that you take, every small win, because ultimately we should all celebrate the small wins. So I think that's the first thing. And I think, you know, you are a culmination of the people that you surround yourself by. And I think that's true in every aspect, not just in your professional career and your team members.
Totally.
I think it goes for, you know, sometimes family members, but then if you can't physically not see that person because you've maybe got a caring responsibility, but you know that they don't make you feel great, you know, curate people that make you feel good about yourself. I think that's the starting point, because that's your foundation, right? And without a foundation, anything else you do will fall down, because you might have people undermining you. They might go, what the hell are you doing that for? You know, you don't need to do that. You don't want any mood hoovers in your life, effectively. So I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is that for me, I think people that generally are quite naturally confident and truly are confident are very curious people, and they're tenacious, and they are all about learning and developing themselves. So the second piece of advice is ask questions. Look at the people that do inspire you, whether it's a female founder, whether it's a male founder, whether it's a colleague, whether it's, you know, somebody in the support team, and ask them how they took themselves on that journey. What did you do to better yourself? How can I do that? Ask questions. You know, there's no shame in doing that. And I think the third thing is actually, there's an abundance of this, is join a community. Join a community of like-minded people who are on a similar journey to you, because then you'll never feel silo. You'll never feel like you're alone. You'll always feel that there's somebody else. Maybe you could buddy up with people. It will just, and you'll all eventually be peers where you're learning on this journey, and it creates accountability, which I think if you are on a self-learning journey, accountability is the main reason why people then fail and then go, oh, it doesn't matter, I don't need to do that anymore. So there's so many communities and groups out there. I would encourage you to do your research, you know, make sure it's people that you do want to be in. If you feel that it's not the best community, politely decline, bow out. And I think, you know, whether it's a WhatsApp based one, Facebook, LinkedIn, you know, wherever, it could be something internally in your business. It could be a group of 5 people or a group of 500 people. But I think for me, those are the 3 main things I would do to build confidence. In terms of the credibility piece, this is where going, you know, sorry to keep barking on about it, but understanding who you are and what your starting point is, the language that you use, is about what examples do I have, even if it's just one, of where I've achieved something. So I think, you know, from a practical personal branding point of view, it can be endorsements from your clients, your customers, from colleagues, from, you know, people that you've met through your community group. Start to build credibility that way. You know, you going out of your way to give a referral to somebody, you know, making sure that you're referring the right person to the right person. And this way, that's how you build this kind of whole inbound model for yourself, where you then get seen as that expert, that thought leader. Sorry to use all the marketing terms, but we're all familiar with them, aren't we?
Yeah, I think for me, that was the biggest learn, and what I've benefited when I went self-employed. I'd say in the last few years, I've built this little circle, like my people. Not just women, by the way. I've got men in there as well, where I know they get my journey, they understand like where I'm coming from, they know me, they are so supportive, but also will call me out of my shit as well. That accountability piece. And I don't, you know, I love my friends outside of work to bits, but they don't understand anything about what I do at all. And it's just nice to have those people, but they're such a positive influence because it makes me always grow and evolve. And yeah, and also I think the for me, sometimes I need to watch back things like my video testimonials from clients more. When I'm having those days where maybe I'm not believing in myself as much, going and listening to people talking about you doing what you do best is sort of proving your inner talk a bit, you know, wrong, because it's all up here is just all made up crap a lot of the time.
All comes down to mindset. I think there's a really big caveat, by the way, because unless anyone's been hiding under a rock on LinkedIn, there's a lot of self-promotion. There's a lot of people that share, you know, posts which I think are kind of borderline sharing success and then boasting. There's also a lot of, I don't even know if I'm supposed to swear on here, but there's a lot of bullshit on there, isn't there? So I think
yeah, you can say what you want.
Be careful that when we're talking about building credibility, this isn't about arrogance. This isn't about, oh my God, I'm amazing. This is about substantial, objective evidence of what you have done to make yourself seen as the trusted partner for your industry, for your internal customers. Obviously, we're talking about internal customers too. And I think that's where it's about tone. It's about being authentic in how you say these things. I'm not talking about, oh, we just had our best month ever. I'm talking about a great success story, which has tons of examples. I just wanted to put that caveat in there. And, you know, those that do want to go and do all that, good luck to you. But I just skim past, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm the same. Like, the authenticity for me is everything. Speaking of authenticity or being authentic, I'll do a quick run through of the next show and the guest. So date of the next one is going to be the 19th of Feb. So 2 weeks from today, 12:30. A disclaimer, next show won't be live. I'm actually recording it on Monday because I've got a TRN rumble in Birmingham. So I didn't want to rely on the hotel internet in case we couldn't go live. So we're pre-recording, but it won't be edited. So what you see on the 19th will be as if it is live anyway. The only difference is questions and comments we'll deal with afterwards, basically. So I've got Max. I always wonder if I pronounce his name wrong because I am so shit with pronouncing people's names. Lermont? No? Lermont, there we go. Nearly. Founder of Forge Talent. Somebody who is really authentic on LinkedIn, if you don't already follow him. We're going to be talking about why the recruitment industry is fucked. Oh God, I can't wait for this one. So yeah, 19th of Feb. That I'll start promoting it the week before. Anyone that's usually invited will be invited. You'll see it all over my LinkedIn anyway. So definitely join on that one. Right, we're going to go a bit over on time, but I want to come back onto you for the top tip because this is an important one, and we have brushed over it just now. But I know it's one you really want to highlight. It's about surrounding yourself with the right people.
Okay, I have this conversation a lot because I'm an executive coach one-to-one, and just as a a human being, when my friends are confiding in me, that if now was day one and you got to choose it's not so much family because you don't always get to choose your family, but you got to choose your team members, your employers, your friends, because your relationship, your love relationship. If this was day one, would you choose those people now? And if the answer is no, then whoever that person is, that's where you need to decide whether that person is somebody that will take you forward on the journey that you're currently on. And the fact is, I often believe this, that if this person that you're saying, actually, I'm not sure that person is my day one, I don't know if I would choose them now. Maybe it's a friend from school, maybe it's somebody that you joined as a rookie and now you've worked alongside them and think you're an absolute knobhead. But they're probably feeling that about you. That's the truth. It's usually reciprocal. So I would suggest that you have a real audit of yourself and your situation professionally and personally, because if I haven't already said that, for me, it's a holistic approach to your life. How would you feel if those people were on the journey with you in 5 months, 5 years, 10 years? That's where you just decide those are the people that are going to take me forward. They're people I trust. They're people that I think better and improve my life, and for me to them. And they're people that I feel joyful to be around. So that's my top tip. Surround yourself with the right people for the reasons I've just given.
Yeah, no, I think that is something I wish I'd understood in my 20s. Because believe it or not, people watching, I'm no longer in my 20s. I know I look it, but I'm not. Yeah, especially my early 20s, like early to mid 20s. And now I've made some much better decisions, especially outside of work, of like the people I have in my world, basically, because I just think if you're not enjoying being around somebody and they're not bringing any value or making you feel good in their presence, I'm at an age now where I'm like, I don't need to do this anymore. Like,
no one needs mood hoovers. Life is too precious. Life is too short. It goes so fast that if you're surrounded by anybody that makes you feel, I love that expression mood hoover because it kind of says it all. It's not quite an onomatopoeia, but it feels like you get this negative, anxious feeling when you're around them, when you're working with them, when you speak to them. You probably create that reaction in them, possibly. And I just think you have an option in life. I'm not talking about, ghosting anybody, by the way. I'm just talking about deciding to take action, whatever that action looks like. It could be you decide to move jobs. It could be you ask for an internal move. It could be, if it is a personal relationship, it could be that you just fade away. I always think that's I've done it plenty of times. You just fade away, and actually you then realise that it wasn't a real relationship. So that's my advice.
Yeah, no, love that, and a good way to end. Amelia, we'll come back to your comments after the show. And I know, like Steve, we've had a couple of other comments, so we will come back into them. I'll tag Alicia in some of them as well. But look, everybody that's got involved today and watched, thank you so much. I've loved today's show. I think we could have easily gone for an hour, couldn't we, on today? So much to go into on this.
I know.
So much to go into. But look, we're done for today. You can watch this back if you want to. So I'll keep sharing the links for it. It'll be on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And look, if you're watching and you want to talk to Leisha more about the stuff that she's been speaking about to me, drop her a message. Would LinkedIn be the best way, Leisha, would you say?
On my LinkedIn profile, if you go to contact info, it's got all my link tree in there. But yeah, LinkedIn's absolutely fine. I do check.
So I'd encourage you to do that.
It's a terrible messaging app. We all know that, don't we? Right? But I do try and go through it at least a couple of times a week to make sure I've not missed anybody. But yeah, I'm happy to chat to anybody. If anyone's got any questions or wants to follow up or wants any advice or coaching support, then brilliant. But I've loved being part of this, and well done for only going 5 minutes over with us.
I know, we've done pretty good, haven't we? We've done well. We've done well. I actually forgot to tell you before we went live, Leisha, if you could stay on, because we're going to end the show, but we're going to have a little chat after. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you on the 19th for the next show. Oh, why are we still live?